I couldn't assimilate what was happening while my spouse and my relatives were preparing lunch a few meters away. My husband's nephew and I were locked in one of the bathrooms on the beach, embarking on an exciting journey. In reality, it all started months ago. I am Susanna, 35 years old at the time, married to Jose, an attractive 42-year-old man. Our union was over 9 years. We met on a part-time job at a restaurant over a decade ago. Since then, we remained inseparable. The years consolidated our relationship, overcoming the usual challenges without setbacks. As for our personalities, I always maintained a serious and calm image for society and my husband. I liked to project seriousness and the image of a married woman. Jose, a conservative, never knew about my youthful experiences or follies. With him, I couldn't talk about my youthful experiences and adventures or dress provocatively in private. However, that didn't bother me. He respected it, knowing what I was getting into at the beginning of our relationship. In love with him, I accepted his nature. The months progressed, the beginning of the year holidays were approaching and I was excited. A few months ago, I had one of the best experiences of my life. Jose invited me to a Christmas party with his family at Christmas, and it was then that excitement filled my life. That celebration, in which I met Mateo, Jose's beloved nephew, began at 6 in the afternoon. Upon arrival, I was disappointed to note that it would be quite boring, seeing only older people pass through the door. Although Jose was happy at his parents' house, I couldn't believe I had traveled an hour and a half to sit and talk for hours. Finally, I decided to help my mother-in-law by preparing chocolate and food, spending most of the time in the kitchen. My surprise was enormous when, after 40 minutes in the kitchen, I returned to the living room. I was pleasantly surprised that there were more people my age and young people. When Jose noticed my return to the main room, he approached and began to introduce me to the newcomers, uncles, brothers, sisters and, among all the nephews, Mateo, son of Jose's sister, Andrea, a beautiful woman, stood out. Mateo, a young man with an imposing height of 1.88 m and an athletic physique due to his swimming practice, caught my attention with his incredible smile. Although our greeting was brief, I felt a desire that I had not experienced in a long time. Aware that they were ephemeral thoughts, I laughed to myself, not believing what was crossing my mind. That night, for the first time, I would cheat on my husband. It was around 1:30 at night, and what I thought would be a boring party turned into one of the most fun of my life. We danced for 2 or 3 hours straight, even with Mateo once, without anything extraordinary happening. At one point, several people, including my husband, were drunk. Taking advantage of the trust in his mother's house, I decided to take a break, heading to the garage to check Jose's car and test the comfort of the seats. I wasn't going to sleep in a strange bed that night. I walked through passageways until I reached a small garden, passing it to finally reach the garage where Jose's car was. I opened the door, and upon entering, the first thing I did, I turned on the lights and, to my surprise, I saw Mateo coming out of a room in the garage. We looked at each other for a few seconds until he, laughing, explained that he used the bathroom in the garage because the main ones were busy. I genuinely laughed, since at that moment I was a little drunk and everything was funny to me, plus, anything that came out of Mateo's mouth was nice to me. Together in the garage, Mateo, surprised by Jose's car, expressed his amazement at how beautiful it was. Although it didn't seem like much to me, I understood that it was fascinating to him. Mateo, curious, asked me to show him the interior of the car, to which I agreed by opening the driver's door. At first, I didn't think he would stay long, but after seeing the front, he asked to see the finishes on the back. I agreed without problems, and thanks to that decision, we would end up having something more. When I opened the back door, Mateo quickly climbed in, touching the material of the seats and the roof of the car. I took the opportunity to go up and sit on the side, thinking that in a few seconds he would return to the main room and I would stay the night in the car. However, things did not happen that way. Inside the car, in the back, Matteo kept making me laugh with his jokes and witticisms. About 5 minutes of laughter passed at the top of my lungs, until, feeling clearer from the drinks, I began to ask him about his personal life. Matteo told me that he didn't have a girlfriend, he liked sports, he knew how to cook, he spoke 4 languages, and that his dream was to enter the National University within a year. I shared my taste for art. Even though we weren't doing anything wrong at the time, I questioned myself why I was chatting with my husband's nephew in his back car at 2 in the morning. There was a point in the conversation where Matteo started flirting awkwardly, something that made me laugh at his naivety. "Matteo, please, you look like a fool," I said, laughing. He responded with a laugh, asking me if he didn't think it was "You're attractive, of course, but no matter how attractive you are, I'm still much older than you," I expressed to Matteo, looking him in the eyes. He responded with the typical line that age was just a number, which made me burst out laughing. "Matteo, you have to go," I told him as he cooled me with his hands. He commented that he was turning me red, causing my blush to increase even more. "That's enough of your jokes. Now, you need to get out of the car because I want to sleep," I said, laughing. But at that moment, Matteo grabbed my face, turning it towards his, and told me, "There will only be one," proceeding to kiss me. I remember it was a pretty good kiss, although it didn't last long. Although brief, it was one of those kisses where you just close your eyes and let yourself go. However, after a few seconds, I pushed him away with my hands, telling him that that was it. Of course, that wasn't all, since at that moment I underestimated the passion that a young man can have at that stage of his life. I didn't know how to react to what I saw. Matteo, in a matter of seconds, freed himself of all the fabric from his bottom, revealing something I never imagined seeing that night. I looked at him for a few seconds and then directed my gaze toward the garage door, a few meters away from us. Despite the worry about my husband's arrival, that worry added excitement to the moment. "Wait a second," I said, opening the car door to turn off the garage light and returning to the car in a matter of seconds. Once inside, I turned on the internal light to illuminate us a little and continue with what we had started. I don't know how much time we spent there, but I think it was all morning, as I noticed how the morning suddenly began to lighten. The car had turned into a sauna from all the heat we generated, and the seat seemed soaked. Matteo and I, exhausted, realized that the day was starting again. "Listen to me, Matteo, no one should know about this," I told him, trying to appear serious, to which he responded with a mischievous smile, grabbing me by the cheeks of my face. Later, he got dressed and got out of the car heading to the living room or one of the guest rooms, while I continued recovering from everything that had happened, trying to. Staying awake was in vain. In the end, my body and brain completely shut down. When I opened my eyes, I noticed that it was 12 noon. Without thinking twice, I got out of the car and wandered around the living room. I saw what was typical after those parties: people asleep on couches and chairs, beers on the floor, and some who fell asleep at the table. I walked towards the kitchen and noticed 3 voices talking. When I looked out, I discovered that it was Jose, Matteo, and Matteo's mother. "You're finally awake. Where did you sleep?" Jose asked with a big smile. I responded by telling him that I slept in his car. Since then, Matteo and I have not stopped looking at each other in complicity, knowing what we had done, without thinking that it would only be the beginning of endless adventures. Hours later, when more of Jose's relatives woke up, we said goodbye and promised to see each other again. Jose and I returned home along the highway. Although Joseph didn't understand why he was radiant and happy, he didn't have to know. A few weeks later, we spent the Christmas holidays at my mother's house with my family. In the middle of the holidays at the beginning of the year, Jose happily informed me that her sister Andrea invited us to spend the summer on the beach with her son Matteo and her husband Juan Carlos. Wow, that's very good news, I exclaimed happily, looking at the ceiling of my room. Jose, without understanding, commented that he assumed he was okay with going to the beach. If you want to know what happened that day on the beach, don't forget to like the video and comment on the word you see on the screen. Without further ado, see you next time, friends.